of us that are looking at this debris, the tons and tons of debris.
Well, understand that we don't know exactly where those rescues came from in Lower Manhattan. We don't know if they came from the World Trade Center buildings themselves or surrounding buildings. There's probably 10 or 15 buildings that surround the World Trade Center that need to be searched, that are partially collapsed. So there's plenty of opportunities to find both rescuers and civilians.
Gary, before we let you go, any final thoughts as to what your colleagues have experienced and will experience in the weeks to come? All right, unfortunately, we lost Gary Brees, but I think he's given us some very good insights as to how seriously these firefighters approach their jobs, how willing they are to take on the risks they do, and how willing they will continue to be to go into this rubble of this massive tragedy to attempt to rescue folks. I think the most important point Gary just made, that the majority of your rescues, 90% of them, will happen within 24 hours of the initial impact of an explosion or a fire, and we continue to wish the New York City Fire Department and all these urban rescue teams that have come here to help out very good luck indeed as they go about this dreadful process of trying to find people alive, and the tons and tons of concrete and cement and what some folks have likened this morning to nuclear winter. Darren, that's it from New York for the time being, and we'll come back to you later.
Paula, thank you very much. I know the fire officials, as you're talking to them, they understand the reality of what they face, and as you reflected across America, the hope still goes on that many more people will be rescued from that rubble in New York City and perhaps even at the Pentagon. Meanwhile, while you were talking to fire officials, two important developments to tell our viewers about as we seek more information. At 3 p.m. Eastern, that's about 3.5 hours from right now, the FBI will be holding a news conference from headquarters in Washington, D.C. That FBI news conference will feature the new head of the FBI, Robert Mueller. Also, the Attorney General John Ashcroft will be at that news conference. Of course, you will see that live here on CNN. We told you a few minutes ago, for you travelers out there, those of you who have loved ones that are stuck somewhere across America or perhaps overseas, noon Eastern today, a half hour from now, was the original time set as the possible lifting of that ban by the FAA for flights to resume over U.S. airspace. We did get word a few minutes ago that the FAA is pushing back that time, that at 12 noon. We don't have word quite yet, I believe, as to when the new time estimation will be. Let's bring our Patty Davis in, who's been following this part of the story for us. Patty, are you getting any word now as to when the FAA says flights might resume across the U.S.?
Well, Darren, what the FAA is saying specifically is that the 12 noon was the earliest time that it might reopen U.S. airspace to commercial flights. What it is saying now at this point is that decision now is up to the White House. That announcement will be made by the White House in consultation with the Department of Transportation. Now, the Department of Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta was scheduled to hold a press conference about an hour ago. That was canceled. He was to have details on exactly the security measures, how that would happen in terms of the airspace, etc. But that was canceled. We're now told that the White House will be making the announcement on when the airspace will be reopened. So FAA saying that noon now, possibly not the target time for reopening U.S. airspace. Now, Washington Airport Authority, the Metropolitan Airport Authority spokeswoman tells me, as far as Washington, Reagan, and Dulles airports are concerned, she is not expecting either of those airports to have any flights today. No airlines have filed any flight plans at those two airports. Now, I have some details on a few airlines here. American Airlines does say that it may resume some flights when airspace is reopened. United Airlines is saying that it does not plan any scheduled flights before 3 p.m. Central Time. And of course, this is all up to whether or not the airspace is opened, if and when.
Patty, if you're still with us there, so you're saying it's not the Transportation Department or the FAA that's going to make that announcement, the White House. But is the White House saying when they'll make that announcement? I have to imagine there are a lot of frustrated travelers stuck across the U.S.
Yeah, we're actually just told now that no decision has been made exactly when U.S. airspace will open. That hopefully we'll hear more about that later today. Delta Airlines also saying that it has canceled flights through 6 p.m. Eastern today, so it's obviously up to what the federal government decides to do. No decision made at this point in terms of when that airspace will be reopened. Darren.
All right. Patty Davis in Washington. Patty, that is going to be frustrating news, as I mentioned, for a lot of people who are stuck. Paula, you're going to have this combination, this balancing act of people who, of course, want the airways to be safe and yet probably very anxious to get home to their families and loved ones.
Understand that. Thanks so much. We wanted to bring you quickly up to date on what is going on here. Earlier this morning, we talked with Joe Albaugh, who is the head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He talked to us about the 4 urban, specially trained search and rescue teams that will be joining the teams already here. It's hard to get a fix on the total numbers involved, but the head of the fire chiefs was just saying he believed in addition to that, 16 other urban search and rescue teams would be joining the efforts of Joe Albaugh's team. Right now I want to go to Gary Tuchman, who joins us from Ground Zero for an update on what kind of rescue operations are taking place right now. Gary?
Well, Paula, the World Trade Center was the type of landmark that even though we know full well what happened, I still expect to turn around and see it standing there. Instead, we just see the skeleton of what was the South Tower. We come to you from Church Street and Chambers Street. This intersection is next to a subway station called Chambers World Trade Center. But there no longer is a World Trade Center. This neighborhood now is completely closed to the public, only open to emergency officials right now. Police, fire, FBI, members of the National Guard are behind me right now doing everything they can to protect the area. And we've seen a lot of sights today coming down the street right next to me. We've seen vehicles carrying body bags. It was very solemn, very sad for us to see. We've also seen many large flatbed trucks carrying wreckage. We are told by New York City officials that some of the wreckage is up to 100 feet high right next to where the World Trade Centers used to be. And we've also seen many incinerated cars and trucks that have come on flatbed trucks and that are being disposed. But there also has been some good news. Officials here tell us that 9 survivors have been found. 6 of them are fire officials, 3 of them are policemen. The story of the rescue of one of the policemen is an unbelievable story. We are told this policeman was trapped under wreckage. His legs were trapped under wreckage, but because he had worked at the World Trade Center building, he knew exactly where he was. He couldn't see daylight at all. He was under the wreckage, but he had his cell phone with him. He called up on the cell phone and said, I know where I am. Come over here in this area and look. He was in a courtyard between where the 2 towers used to be. They came over, they dug, they found him, but they thought they were going to have to amputate one of his legs to get him out. As you may recall, after the Oklahoma City disaster, one of the women who was found, who has survived, who is still alive today, she had to have her leg amputated to be cut out of the wreckage. They thought they were going to have to do it in this case. As it turned out, they did not have to amputate his leg. He was taken away in an ambulance, and it said that he will be fine. With us right now is a gentleman by the name of Robert Galinsky. Robert is a common, everyday citizen who got to the scene very early yesterday and was allowed to participate in the search in the World Trade Center site. Now, first of all, tell me what you saw when you were there.
Well, first, I want to say I came here because we're Americans are not going to, New Yorkers are not going to sit back and grieve forever. And as that, I needed to take some action and show that, you know, New York, we're standing up and we're doing what we need to do. I got down here at 6:30 this morning. I heard last night that they were going to have volunteers come in. I came in, on the way in, I saw, you know, ankle-high dust, twisted buses and fire trucks blown out, cars blown out, buildings that aren't really making make it on the air, other buildings around the Trade Center with windows that were smashed in. Starbucks had its windows smashed in, which isn't a bad thing.
What was this experience like?
It was tough because it was very dangerous. We were right ground zero in World Trade Center Tower 1, digging, trying to find people. We found 2, unfortunately, people that were not alive.
Robert Galinsky, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
By the Massachusetts Port Authority, which has already announced that big security changes will be made at Logan Airport, where 2 of the planes were hijacked, including no more curbside luggage checkups.
Including full compliance with the new security requirements being imposed on all U.S. airports. We received specific guidance on these measures from the FAA a short time ago. and I'm proud to say that many of these measures have been in place at Logan for many years. In addition, I spoke with Governor Swift this morning, and she has instructed us to go beyond these FAA requirements by placing state police at all security checkpoints at Logan Airport. With the new FAA requirements and the additional security at Logan, we are confident that when the airport is reopened, the safety of the traveling public will be ensured. I'm going to turn this over to our other speakers. Let me just say that due to the ongoing investigation and for the sake of public safety, the law enforcement officials who are here with us today are limited in the questions that they can answer and the facts that they can confirm. Let me first ask Tom Kinton, the Director of Aviation for Logan Airport, to speak.
Good morning. As Ginny mentioned, we are focused on a reopening of this airport, and I cannot tell you what time that will occur. I'm going to go through a number of issues, summarizing the guidance that we have been given by FAA, both the airlines and the airport operator, that has to be done and has to be in place before this airport can open. A lot of it, as you will see, will take a lot of time, and we are going to take our time. And if we have to delay the reopening of this airport, as others open around the country, we will delay the reopening to get it done and get it right. First of all, let me reemphasize that the guidance is for all U.S. airports. It will begin with immediately evacuation of all terminals and sweeping of K-9 teams, explosive K-9 teams. Increased presence of uniformed personnel, plainclothes security personnel, and others in all areas of the airport. And as you heard mentioned, we will be staffing the security checkpoints with uniformed state police, which goes beyond the guidance given to us by FAA. Be increasing the frequency of random ID checks in the secured areas of Logan Airport. We will secure, we already have them in place, bomb detection teams for quick response here at Logan Airport. We will be reducing the number of operational access points into the airport. We will also discontinue curbside check-in and remove unauthorized vehicles that are within 300 feet of any terminal building. And that point there is probably one of the most time-consuming things we have to accomplish, because presently there are over 9,000 vehicles parked at Logan Airport. One of the garages, Terminal B, has almost 2,500 vehicles, and it needs to be emptied. We are in the process of doing that and relocating those cars to Suffolk Downs, and we will not reopen that terminal, certainly, and perhaps not the airport, until that task is completed. There is FAA is prohibiting the sale or use of knives, regardless of any size, in any sterile areas of the airport. That includes concession operators, food and beverage, as well as any retail operators that may sell such items. That means anything metal or plastic. Airport operators will develop an awareness plan to keep all airport employees informed about security, and the airport operators and the FAA shall review and reevaluate these contingency plans for ongoing airport security threats that may develop. Airlines will not be accepting cargo or mail, and prior to passenger boarding of any airplanes, those aircraft must undergo a comprehensive search. That's each and every flight before they are boarded by passengers. And as I said at the beginning, we do not have an estimate on when this airport will reopen. Possibly, it could be for some relocation.